good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. We are back with another Neurodiversity Stories with your host. My name is Darren Clark, and I'm here every single Friday with to spread more awareness around neurodiversity and most importantly, to speak to incredible people. Now, we have been incredibly blessed. A lot of incredibles going on. Incredibly blessed with the amount of guests that we've had on, the long list of people that would like to come on this. And today, without further ado, we have got another incredible guest who is going to be able to share her neurodiversity story. Now, why are we doing this? And again, why am I here? So, guys, my name is Darren Clark. I'm a global neurodiversity consultant. And I work with organizations across the globe to help spread more awareness for neurodiversity by speaking and by consulting as well. And at this point as well, I'd like to give a massive shout out to our sponsors, Scanning Pens, and please check this out. So guys, Scanning Pens, their story is very simple. They were created to empower people of all ages, backgrounds and learning abilities with the tools they need to succeed in the classroom and in the real world. So please check them out. Their link is associated with this Neurodiversity Stories. So please, by all means, go and check them out. So guys, I want to bring on our next guest to our Neurodiversity Stories. Her name is Tricia Cook. And she is a online dyslexic tutor and author as well. And Tricia will share her story, how she was held back once and almost twice, diagnosed in the 2nd grade. She thought she was stupid, couldn't do anything right, and everyone hated her. Horrendous. And never at that time saw the gift of dyslexia. However, retrained her brain and to learn at 38, thought she was going to go all the way. I could learn one problem, but was still unsure and insecure. This story is absolutely incredible. I met Tricia on social media, been following her work, the incredible work that she's doing, and it's going to be amazing, guys. Please sit back, and I want to introduce Tricia. Good morning, Tricia. How are you this morning?
I'm doing well, thank you, Darren.
I would say good afternoon, but I know it's 6 a.m. in where you are at the moment.
Correct.
Tricia, thank you so much for getting up so early. I understand that normally we do this show at 11 a.m. And when I contacted you, I didn't realize the time difference. And you said that's absolutely fine. I'd love to be on Neurodiversity Stories, but getting up and being on here at 5 a.m. is a little bit of a push.
I needed all my brain capability, so I was wide awake, coffee and everything. So thank you for doing that. I really appreciate it.
No, absolutely. It's amazing to have you on, I guess. And 6 a.m. is still incredibly early. Tricia, I want to, I kind of know a little bit about you from, the conversations we had and the social media presence I've kind of been following as well. But it'd be amazing if you could share with the guest a little bit about yourself and who you are.
Okay, well, presently I work with children and adults with neurodifferences, from anywhere from dyslexia to autism. And I try as much as I can to give them tools for not only learning academically better, reading better, but also things about how to become calm when things get anxious for them. So I try to encompass the whole person, not just looking at bits and pieces and parts of that person, just the whole person, and training others to do the same. Tutors, administrators, reading specialists like myself, training them to look at the whole person.
That's incredible. How we break it down, like you said, the whole person, within this side of it, because I guess we tend to always think it's just one little thing will be fit everything and that would be sorted. But you're saying as a whole, you look at the whole thing and the solution for it. Have you, if we could break down to kind of so you're diagnosed with dyslexia, is that correct?
Yes. In 1983 with central auditory processing and a learning disability. It's 1983. They did not know much about what we're talking about today when we're talking about dyslexia. But I very much have dyslexia and probably some undiagnosed other things, including twice exceptionality, I believe. But yeah, school was a major struggle, reading, writing, math, all of that. So
What kind of with regards to dyslexia, because you were like me in the sense that the diagnosis was quite late. Am I right in saying that?
well, I was 8, so that was probably pretty spot on, but I really wish it would have been a little bit earlier than 8 because I know a lot of traumatic, damage was happening
Yeah,
because I realized that there was a diversity amongst my peers, and I didn't know why. My mom didn't know why. Nobody did. And so I was just streamlined through till then. And then I got a tutor, but she was not a dyslexia tutor. She was just a regular tutor.
So with regards to before you were diagnosed at 8, I know we mentioned, and we'll go into this in a little while around when you were 38. Sorry, I got the numbers mixed up, where you say that you retrained your brain and kind of accepted the dyslexia. So school in that sense before the diagnosis was a struggle, but then even after the diagnosis there were did you feel that was kind of, I mean, 8 years old, it's still very, very young, isn't it? And to understand the educational side of it. But how did the support element go after the diagnosis? Was it?
Like I said, just a regular tutor and just regular in the same classroom as everybody else. Nothing was really changed for me in the fact that I was at really good private schools, and they were trusting that they were meeting those needs just because they were in a really good small private school. So that was, obviously the case. I feel like I could have done better with a dyslexia tutor like myself, but and socially it was not accepted. The teachers were very frustrated with me. They were obviously, when they seemed like they were mad at me a lot, I took that on personally, that they were mad at me, like because with dyslexia we're extremely sensitive to people, animals, and nature. So they made me feel a lot of ashamed, shame towards myself, even knowing the diagnosis.
Absolutely.
Just frustrated with me and not being able to teach me as well.
Absolutely. And did you were you kind of taken out of lessons into separate lessons, or was it a case of just in with the classroom and the normal lessons?
High school, I was taken out into because I was in public school for the first time. I was taken out to resource room, and it was an overwhelmed special ed teacher. So we were my peers. I had one peer that would help me a good bit.
So that was kind of we call it kind of primary school in the UK, and then secondary school. So what were your kind of feelings in the sense of when you went to secondary school? Was it because for me it was an incredibly I wasn't diagnosed until 36, 37. So all of those years there was this unknowing, there was something, but just didn't know what it was. But I always remember there was a big step from primary school, so the first school to the second school. Purely on the fact of how much was put on you to compete with other students and carry out all of those learnings. So was that a big struggle for you going to the next school?
I think we learn early on what the teachers are looking for. They're looking for students to be able to verbalize well what the information they're trying to put into them, and they don't want to hear something else that's brought out. And we think outside of the box a whole lot of the time, and sometimes things that even the teacher might not understand. So they would just you'd look at that student next to you that's getting the reward for being able to regurgitate exactly what the teacher wants to hear. That was just not me. So No, you go ahead.
So were there any kind of lessons that you thrived in or you enjoyed throughout school? Because there was a couple, for me, there was a couple, the lessons that I was allowed to kind of attend was art, drama, and obviously, PE. So obviously, the fitness. Were there
Yes.
anything that that for you that gained that interest?
Yeah, so of course my gross motor ability is pretty good. So yeah, tennis was really good for me. I actually won
Awesome.
a senior award in tennis. Um, I actually did well. I did terrible in all maths except geometry. So with my
Okay.
strong visual spatial reasoning, that's not a surprise that one I did better than, I would say do well in. And I actually did well in geography because you think about maps and our ability to visualize overhead in a 3D way. I did actually really well in geography and science. I did well in science, but uh, that was because I've learned about our type of brain that we think, and how we learn scientifically is way different. I'd like to tell our listeners how ours works for
Please
science.
do. I would be delighted.
Yeah, what we do best for anybody is divergent thinkers. We learn through observations first. So anything that you're trying to teach us, if we haven't observed it yet, like having us read articles, if we have not observed it, it just might as well go in one ear out the other. We do best with observations. Then we like to create our own theory on whatever observation and what we saw, and then after our theory, our own hypothesis, and then we can test it out, and then we can be ready to hear what you wanted us to learn. So I feel like because later on became Montessorian, that was the perfect environment as a teacher to learn, because it really taught me how to observe students. So I was becoming a scientist in a way, but I've always done well in science.
Wow.
Mhm.
That's incredible. And we know that the human brain is just so complex. And people say, you only use a fraction of the brain, and how we perceive things. And I guess, when I kind of started looking into dyslexia for myself personally, because once I had the diagnosis, it was almost kind of, there's the diagnosis, off you go. And
Yes.
then it was a kind of it was then a journey of sort of trying to find things out myself, that self-discovery, reading books as best you can, go into different organizations and just absorbing all of this, this kind of information. And it's not, and I guess the more people I've spoken to, it does feel that they do a lot of self-learning and of how it kind of affects themselves. Organizations out there are incredible, and I think coaches, consultants, tutors that do an incredible job as well. But there is this kind of self-learning element to it. Would you agree on that?
Oh, definitely. So from what you just said is that when you found your diagnosis out, it led you to be open to learning about yourself, right?
Yes.
So before then, it was just a shaming yourself, possibly. I'm not saying that you did, but maybe thinking negatively, possibly about your performance, because we put so much academic uh, strengths on people that we want everybody to be learning the same way and learning the same things. So once you had that door open of getting the diagnosis, then you find out how your brain works. That's what happened at 38. I was learning. I retrained my brain by when I was on my reading specialist certification,
Yes.
and they were teaching us how people learn. And then it clicked with me, oh, this is how I learn. And wait, and all the things that come along with dyslexia is that we have strong visual spatial skills, right?
Yes.
So they had introduced us to all these different types of graphic organizers to put information into. Actually, probably an overwhelming amount if you Google it. So it makes sense that I always went to webs. Webs were my thing when I was young, but I didn't know why webs.
Yes.
Learning webs, we have the circle and then you do the information on the outside of it. Uh,
Okay.
yeah. So I didn't know that why I had always learned best with learning webbing. Because then mind maps came out recently. So it's like, I went from webs to mind maps. So now I can learn everything just putting it into a mind map, not physically anymore, but up here in my mind. So I can visually see that mind mapping work and be able to put information into it. And then I can learn absorbently everything auditorily, not even auditorily, just by listening now, listening to what people are saying, not just hearing what they're saying. Because I did a lot of just hearing what people said. I'm starting to listen. So
That's incredible. So you use mind mapping as a real kind of tool. Do you use that in all aspects of personal life and work life, or is it?
well, yeah, all learning, anything I'm trying to learn, personal life, anything, I see a mind map in my head and I place the information in there and it stems off of each other. And then I'm able to go and visit that mind map and be able to verbalize what I'm trying to say. So,
Yeah.
so I teach kids mind maps and adults because now I see the importance of it. And they don't have to wait till like we were much older when we learned our own minds and how they work. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And is that something that you kind of looked into, Tricia? Is that something that you then taught yourself, to kind of work with it, because we talk about this self-discovery and what kind of works for one person might not necessarily fit, for someone else. But mind mapping in that visualization side of it, although there is that connection, and I'm a very visual person as well, did you then think, well, actually, this really does work for me, so I'm really going to kind of go all in and see this helps? Was that something, a self-discovery for yourself, or how did that work
No,
out?
it was a total self-discovery. I mean, again, I was working my reading specialist certification. They were exposing us to all different kind of graphic organizers. And then I thought, well, webs have always been good for me. And then mind maps came out. I'm like, okay, this is definitely what's going to help me to learn better. But as you might have read, even though I retrained my brain at 38, I thought the world was my oyster at that point, right? But
Yeah.
I was still having problems with insecurities and things like that. But you shouldn't be insecure if you're now learning as you've always wanted to learn. So I had to discover, why am I having that insecurity still? And what came up was abandonment, the word abandonment. And I thought, what is this word for? And it was, I could literally I had to revisit those times in school where it was really hard for me. And I remember teachers standing behind me, frustrated, yelling. I remembered the being put up against the teacher's desk. So I was like, that abandonment made a lot of sense, because I looked really up to teachers, at anybody, Ronald Reagan, at that time, Ronald McDonald, but I really looked up to teachers. And so, of course, that made sense. But that still wasn't answering the story. So I had to keep on revisiting these not so fun images. We can keep images from our past like they're still present. And it came up of where they were ignoring me. I felt ignored by the teachers, where I never thought about that. So with that being said, that probably had, no, not probably, it created some anger for me and a lot of shame. So I had to figure out what this anger and shame was about, because I never thought of myself as an angry child or angry person. And that's what it was. I was angry, but it wasn't working to be angry for me. So I was putting a lot of shame on myself. So I had to really look at that shame.
That's really, really interesting. And as they say, we kind of hold on to so much in our past, those kind of feelings, and they do, then continue throughout our adulthood, in the sense of until we're able to then kind of, help, break them down. And I guess that's something that you've been able to kind of revisit. Was there so we say at kind of 38 that kind of happened. What was the turning point, in the sense of that you said, I'm going to start revisiting that? What did that kind of look like, Tricia? If you don't mind sharing, of course, you don't feel you have to.
Yeah, so that was about 40, when I wanted to look and see why I was insecure. I'd still have negative ruminating thoughts of myself that weren't pleasant, which would never have said to somebody else or thought of towards somebody else. So the first thing I went to was the Bible, right? And the word strength popped up for me as if it was popping out of the page. And I would hear the word strength as if it was louder. And I didn't know what that was all meaning. And so what it was is it was a living Bible. I had no idea what I was seeing and hearing from what other people have told me they referred that's what that was.
Yes.
So at that time, I also started Tai Chi, believe it or not.
Okay.
And then
No,
at
no,
my
no.
Tai
Yeah,
Chi,
yeah, yeah. I
went
know
to
it
a
well. Know
yoga.
it well.
Yeah, I went to a yoga practice, right? And so, so when I was doing these small movement meditations, again, those images would come up, and I'd have these thoughts of what is the strength about, or whatever. Well, when you have anger, what you need from that most is strength. So anger replaces strength. You know, everybody knows that shame is replaced for empathy, but nobody ever thinks about how anger is replaced with strength. See, that didn't even make sense to me at first.
Yeah.
But what it is have you ever met an angry person that wants to look at their anger? No, they're too self-absorbed in their anger, and
Right.
they want to attract people that they can give that anger to, and so that they can feel that more of that anger, because anger is actually working. They didn't want to look at the anger, right?
Yeah.
So I
Absolutely.
had to take a lot of strength to recognize that anger inside of me, a whole lot, because again, I didn't recognize it. I was an angry person. I was not an angry child, but I, obviously was,
Yeah.
because anger leads to shame is what I found out. So, because again, if your anger is not working, you go straight to shame, and that's what I was. So I've developed an anger shame checklist for families and carers of people that they can get from me, and it's basically how it looked for me as a child. Were you impulsive, like all of a sudden working on a paper, crumple it up and throw it across the room? Yes, that was me. But so
Yeah.
it's things like that, like real applicable things to learning differences and looking in the learning environment. Now, the shame, on the other hand, was it was probably all checked marked when I was young. I probably had check marked on all those. It was, do you have ruminating negative thoughts? Do you withdraw? Do you shut down? Those types of things. So then I can get back to the parents and go, look, this is all natural. All these feelings of anger and shame with a
Yeah.
neurodifference, so part of it. Now let's look how we can replace those with strength and empathy. So I give them a whole bunch of ways. And like I was saying, I went to the Bible. So if you're a Bible person, go to that. Also did Tai Chi and yoga and small movement meditations. But the most important thing that goes across all cultures and beliefs is affirmations. I do affirmations every day. And my affirmation personally goes like this: I am smart. I can do this. I am love. So no matter what you check mark on it, you're going to have at the very end that affirmation. Because no matter how many times you tell a child, you think they don't believe or they don't listen to you because you're the parent or the carer towards that child. But guess what? Those become their inner thoughts, those inner beliefs, those intentions. So, and the perceptions of their own life is that they can do it.
Absolutely, that's truly incredible, and that's something that's really kind of helped you identify, kind of how you deal with these things, and how you kind of, you look at those experiences that you've had, throughout the past, and I felt for me, with the diagnosis and stuff, there's still, 36, 37, I'm 44 now, so I still feel it's very new, that the diagnosis of dyslexia and ADHD. And I feel that there's always something that I'm still trying to work on, to try and understand, to kind of help. And there are, the meditation for me is key. I wish that I actually did it more, but because it's like one of those things. I know that if I do more meditation, it helps with my ADHD. And then I get to a point where I end up not being able to do it, because then I'm thinking, oh, actually, I've got to do this, or I'm doing this, and I make myself really, really busy. But I know that the minute that I start doing meditation or my martial arts or my photography, it does kind of put me into kind of a more logical zone. So, and is that something that for yourself, do you feel have you got yourself to a point now where you just do these kind of things, or is it still a battle to get yourself in the zone to do them?
Well, the battle is being very busy with work, and getting that time in. But I know that if I even have a minute or 5 minutes, I'm going to be listening to quiet meditation music and getting into my mind. See, what happens is people don't realize is how strong the mind is of somebody who's neurodiverse. That's part of visual spatial reasoning is we can hold images in our mind for a long time. But if
Wow.
we have clutter or noise or a lot of thinking and using that mental body or emotional body, we're not into that etheric body where we can listen to what's in our minds. We have very strong minds that we need to listen to. And the only way, again, is to cut off that noise and that time for 5 minutes. Like even coming on today, I had somebody already trying to, text me, get a hold of me. I was like, I have to get back to you, but I'm going to clear my mind because I'm about to get onto this wonderful podcast. So I don't think if I wasn't centered and being able to know with clarity what I was going to say, and I had to listen to what came into my mind, I just couldn't get through my day. And I do photography as well. I have to mention that, and poetry and drawing. But what's crazy is I didn't even know that I had those gifts because I didn't think I could do anything right, as you read out to everybody. I didn't think I could do anything right. But once I discovered that this is a gift, then I can do all these wonderful things.
Absolutely. I just want to show one of the comments, and I'll read it out. And it's from Claire. It says, my twin daughter's prep school told me that my daughter would never thrive in a school environment. I sought help from an amazing speech therapist who retrained my daughter on phonics. Don't ever give up. She's doing an amazing in grade 10, although maths is still a major struggle, just like her mum, who spent 30 years in finance. Took me until I was in my mid-40s to realize that I shared the same issue. Thank you so much indeed for sharing that, Claire. I guess we do. I mean, have you experienced late diagnosis throughout, the people that you work with? So it's just, have you, I was speaking to a gentleman the other day who contacted me through LinkedIn, and he was 76, and he just had his dyslexia diagnosis at the age of 76, and he said it felt like it gave him a lot of answers to the the questions that were there throughout his kind of entire life. How his family thought, loved him obviously, but thought of him in obviously his school and his work. And I'm thinking, I mean, that's probably the oldest that I've heard of someone having a diagnosis at 76. But it does seem quite common, doesn't it, that the diagnosis
in
is quite
1975, it was, even the term learning disability was defined, and that was somebody who struggles in reading and math with a high or average IQ. So that is 1975. So that is not too long ago, and they were definitely not training teachers on dyslexia who were working the most with children. So all these children were going under the radar, and again, developing this anger and shame that I want to address, and not only help them with phonics. I help adults with phonics, but more than that, I want them like you to get their stories out. All of them want to share their story in some capacity.
Yeah.
So getting their stories out in the open, as well as even a later diagnosis, just getting that story out will help them look at their anger and shame too, I hope. Because I don't know a person who going through what we went through and how traumatic it had been that we hadn't in some way developed any anger and shame towards learning people, brothers, sisters, anybody who gave us disparagement. That's looking down on somebody based off their thoughts, feelings, ideas, perceptions. Because I felt like disparagement was a huge part of my me getting stories out. I used to write stories about mystery stories. What child with dyslexia didn't like to write about mysteries? I had written a story about Sherlock Holmes, and I brought it to school, and the teacher marked it all up with red ink. And I knew never to share any of my stories again. So
Yeah.
it's the same thing that's happened to so many of us. where that's disparagement. You know, I had a story to tell and it was shamed, you know, red marks everywhere. So I want to give that opportunity to adults, not even to help them learn to read, get their diagnosis, but talk about that anger and shame. So that is part of the change.
Absolutely. I
And also
find,
looking, yeah.
no, please, sorry. Also looking at what, Tricia, please continue.
Oh, sorry. My other thing that I offer for free is a learning styles checklist. And of course, it's going to go off of Gardner. But what you get back from me and the reading of it may be something that you've never thought about yourself before, which is really interesting. But I just wish my teachers and my parents had that opportunity to feel something like that on me, you know, especially since I know what my top three are now. I wish I'd waited, but
Absolutely. I found, you know, when you mentioned about storytelling I've always I've dealt with telling people about my my kind of dyslexia journey, ADHD, and everything I've done when I've been able to be, you know, invited to speak at businesses or shows or anything else like this. It taking people on that emotional journey that you go on. It's just incredible how many people then start saying, well, actually, you know, I can relate to that, and then they start sharing their story. And I think it's like I said, I don't know if it's a dyslexic trait or with neurodiversity, but I've met so many storytellers in the sense that they just want to kind of get that their message out and talk, and it's almost like it's just been suppressed for so many years, and then suddenly they find this kind of confidence to then start sharing it, and it's just so powerful because, you know, like we're doing today, you know, sharing our feelings, sharing our stories, and it just becomes so powerful.
And that brings me to the fact to say what I'd said to you in my write-up is that it all had to happen for a reason. I had to go through all this for a reason. Now, again, and that reason would be to share the story that's now going to identify and help people understand what you're going through is similar. We're all going through is similar, and how, again, strength and empathy can take us to a place where to get through this all, you know, and then you can discover these gifts of dyslexia or whatever your neurodifference may be.
Absolutely. I just want to share something Jonathan McDonald wrote. But if you think about phonics, the fact that you can't even spell the word phonics, and then he's put the abbreviation of what phonics should be spelled, I would be spelled if you put it as an abbreviation, is the reason dyslexic brains struggle. All excellent spellers use visual spelling, seeing the word in their minds. I can teach a dyslexic child to spell in 2 hours, thanks to Olive. And I think it's this... we put a lot of emphasis on spelling, and there was a program I caught on one of the breakfast shows in the UK, and it was around how the perception of someone's bad spelling. It was one person kind of pro and one person against, and it was basically the premise of the program was around spelling. And immediately, if there's a poorly spelt word in something, then straight away this list. Yeah, totally absolutely. This person,
and they look down like it's grammar. Yeah,
absolutely.
Right? And it's very sensitive to me is the spelling thing, because that's what they see is the spelling, and that's what you will see, because we're not processing what's happening in the middle sound of a word. I don't think people realize this, but how everybody processes a word. We process the middle part last, the last part second. That's how everybody processes a word. Of course, the first part first. So when we're missing what's not being processed in that middle position of a word, our brains and our minds are so smart that we'll end up saying, well, there's got to be something there. I know there's one. So that's when we start to substitute, add, and repeat a sound or omit altogether. So I think it's very important that people know which position and what characteristic of those that I mentioned they do. Now, mine's mostly in the middle position with substitutions. That's mostly what I do. So every time I write something that doesn't look right, because you always have to recheck your spelling. I look right in that middle position and I think to myself, mine is substituting. Did I substitute here? Check the sounds. So, yeah. And he's right about, let me tell you about the visual imaging of a word. So our picture imaging is huge, right? So it's because our picture imaging is used because we think in 3D. Well, a word and the word symbols are in 2D. most of the time, even in black and white. So if it's 2D and in black and white, of course, we're not going to be able to read it. So you have to change the color. You have to add color, shape, size, dimension to something that's 2D. So how are you going to do that? Because of our strong evaluative skills. So you're going to be able to have them count out the letters. Just need to know how many there are. Just trust me on that. And then you can do shapes around it. What does it look like, an animal? So the sight word other is perfect because you cannot sound that out, right?
Yeah.
So other, so you're going to put a shape around it. Oh, that looks like a dog. So they're going to know other dog. And so they're going to be able to think, okay, dog. And then they're going to write out 5-letter word, other, OTHER. So you got to put something that's 3D into something that's 2D to be able to teach them.
That's. Do you find I'm forever writing, kind of thinking about what I need to write at kind of a certain speed, and obviously the ability of being able to put this down on paper is at or on the on the computer is at a different speed, but I'm forever missing letters out, which in my head I see,
Right.
and it's always kind of someone will reread it and they say, well, that you've missed a word out, and I'd be thinking, how is that, how is that possible? But I'm forever missing words out. Is that a common thing?
Makes total sense. So when you had visualized it in your head and you saw it complete with that letter in it, and then you tried to transfer it to the paper, you had said those out loud to yourself. So that's, people don't realize when you say something in your mind it's the same thing as hearing it auditorily. So you had gotten rid of that picture. You had just depended on your auditory memory, and then it never made its way onto the page. Wow. So I believe you got to realize you got to stick with holding those visual images longer. So like I said, you want them to imagine the word other, right? So it's called IVW. What's the intent of this word? Okay, it's like a dog. V, visualize the dog shape around the word other. Okay, now write it. So you got to keep that visual image longer. Somehow you haven't been training your mind to be able to keep it longer, and that should be able to help get it onto the page.
That's incredible.
At least you're aware. The main thing is knowing which characteristics you do. Do you do omissions altogether, additions, repetitions, or substitutions like me? So
yeah. Barry adds a valid point on here, and Barry said, I can see other people's error in writings, but not on my own. And I guess that's for me. I can write it, I can read it back, again and again, and I'm always putting that the word in that I've missed, or the error side of it. Is that something that's down to what you were saying?
It's our anxiousness towards the writing that we can't see our own because we're so anxious at that point. So we got to be able to breathe and get calm when we're writing, because if we're not calm enough, then we won't be able to see it. We're calm reading somebody else's because we're not being judged at that time. So we know that it's going to be something that could be judged or looked at by somebody else, or even ourselves, that we're judging ourselves. So when you get calm, you can be able to notice it better. But it's hard to get rid of that anxiousness, because I have to go back to anger and shame. What I found out is anxiousness is a hyperactivity of the mind. So that's where we do a lot of fusions in ours. That's where we do a lot of skipping over smaller words when we read and things like that. Yeah. Or just reading the first part. So once we get anxious, we got to think about there's some anger there. There's some anger. So there's some anger involved in all of that, and that strength that we need.
Absolutely, and it resonates with me so much what you're saying. And with regards to writing, I always find when we say you're being judged, the minute I start writing something on on my laptop, whatever it is, immediately it underlines that I've done a mistake. Yeah. And if I'm continuously writing and then I look back up it's this is why it becomes a laborious task for me, in the sense it's a struggle, because I then have a couple of options. I can then recreate. I can correct that word as it then underlines, and then it becomes this battle to try and actually, between me and the computer, to identify what I'm actually trying to say, and them to kind of decode and decipher what I'm trying to say for that, for that wording, to come out. And that would take up a long time for me, because you think every time a word comes up, it gets underlined. I then go back in. I'm then editing that, going into spell check, trying to find out. And we're only finding a word. We're not trying to find the grammar behind that, or whether it's a certain abbreviation of the word. So that, I think that's, speaking to you, that's the highlighted so many things as to why it takes me so long to write the email. And the judged element is that you're writing a word and then you're just waiting for that line to appear to judge you. It's wrong.
And so now I laugh at my all the underlines I get, where I used to have a negative thought imagine come up right away, like, gosh, not again, or you're so stupid, this isn't, why can't you just get it right, so I used to have that. And now once a negative thought comes in, if it even creeps in for a second, I say, go away, negative thought, that's not true. And then again, I have to breathe and get calm, and then I'll see less and less. And what's so crazy is I had, when you were saying it, I had the visual image of the red line that comes over, and the color red, people think of it as anger. So again, there's something, if you're still getting upset and anxious over it, it's something with anger. So maybe it made you really angry when possibly, like me, I turned that paper, my mystery story in, and it got red marks all throughout.
I think that you're right. There is that connection.
But nobody said, Tricia, did this make you angry? Nobody talked about me and how I felt about getting that paper back like that. It was just like, oh, yeah, that's not right. Or, nobody said you're angry. You need strength with this, Just didn't talk about that, I guess, so much back then,
Absolutely. And I think one of the ironic things for me personally, and this is why, whether it's a visual problem or dyslexia and those elements as well, I can't actually decode read writing that's in red. So, and that's just something that I've kind of taken, for forever as a child. So whenever my home, the work at school would be passed back to me, it would have, red lines and red writing on it, which for me, I just could not. So it was almost, there was a mistake in your writing, but I can't read what the correct writing is. So that I've always carried that communication barrier, with me. So I guess there's a real problem with the color red, for me personally.
Yeah, exactly. Well, when I was a technical assistant in a pre-K classroom, I had talked to teacher into getting rid of all red pens. I just saw too many in that class. I said, let's get rid of those, replaced with a different color. But yeah, so I think if I would have been having empathy also for that time too, my empathy would have been, to me, Tricia, it's okay, that you have this neuro difference, that, you're going to get through this and it's going to be fine. And my mom would say that, but the teachers were telling me otherwise, with the red marks and the shaming and the, and yelling and things and ignoring.
Yeah, absolutely, Tricia. I wonder why there's been, why the color red, is it has been kind of brought in within that element, that if it's wrong, it's a red pen, going out, putting those crosses. Is it to really kind of highlight it? I mean, I don't know. It'd be really interesting to know what the thought pattern behind the color red, with all the marking side of it on there. That would be really interesting.
Yeah, there's people that do color therapy, and they're psychologically, we know that the colors mean different things. For me, I have found that that's shame, and orange is joy and bliss, and anger is actually yellow, and
Really?
yeah. So it's all those lower energies down here with the the base being shame, and then it goes its way up to the top. That it's goes from the lowest being shame up to highest to anger. So
Wow.
it's a little bit different, but I found other cultures that they believe that too, but in belief systems. But so not surprised that red was chosen, because it universally does mean shame. And how many times did they try to shame us too in the same way that makes them feel, and made them feel better? You
Yeah.
know, like, I got
No,
something over
absolutely.
her. She's not learning. This is hurting my ego. So let me shame her anymore. So, because she's hurting my ego from not learning from me. Everybody's supposed to learn from me, you know. So the teacher really needs to get rid of that ego towards that child that's not learning, and saying it's okay if what I'm doing is not working. Let me try something else that maybe can. But let's get past the fact that we're not going to all learn the same, you know.
Absolutely.
So
I just I want to as always I could speak to my guests, and with yourself for
yeah,
many hours. We're coming a little bit tight up to time,
yeah,
but I wanted to I'm just going to bring in what Brendan's mentioned about, because kind of I'm always interested to know what works for every individual, whether it's software, whether it's an app, whether it's strategies. And I just want to bring in and then I want to kind of find out from yourself, Tricia, what kind of works for you, if there's any technology, any apps or anything else like this. So I just want to bring in Brendan has mentioned text-to-speech software products can really help hear back what you type. This presents it back to your brain without necessarily having to visually read it. Found that clients can speed up their word pressing with these software tools. So we know that there's some amazing companies out there doing some amazing things, with pens and devices and word software as well. Is there something that you use, Tricia, in the sense of, is there a certain app that you use? Is there a certain technology? What works for you?
well, so I believe that I don't use anything like that, because I just don't have time to use anything like that. I
No, no,
just
no.
I just read and get done what I need to read. And when I read based off of what's in my background knowledge constantly and interest anyway. So I don't really need that help for reading anymore. And like, again, if I'm going to read, I'm going to put it in my mind map in my head. So I was trying to think about that, and I just use regular spell check. But I know that you promote the C Pen. Is that the name of the C Pen? Uh,
the There are show
okay.
sponsors. Yeah.
But
So
anything that you can listen to auditorily is better, like books on tape and listening, to help your fluency in your reading. Um, so I do listen to a lot of books on tape. So and the best thing is that if you read along with it, if you don't read along with it, it's not do as well. So
no, absolutely.
I would say a lot of people would need that, but I don't need that extra help. My extra help again comes from learning to look to see if I'm feeling insecure about something. Why is that? Why am I starting to shame myself again? What feeling had caused that at any point? And being able to replace that with empathy and things like that. So if there's anything I struggle with now, is getting rid of that residue of energies on the anger chain. But learning isn't as hard. My spelling, I know again where to look to see. My speaking, I do a lot of I repeat what I'm trying to say back to where it last made sense.
Yeah.
So I haven't done a lot of stumbling today. So that's all that prayer I did this morning on it. But I usually do a lot of stumbling, a lot of fusions. That's words that I'm saying now coming up to words I'm going to say in the future. I didn't do a lot of that. So that calm is really important. So
Tricia,
we do yoga,
I
meditation, all of that. That's where my help comes from. I'm not needing it so much educationally anymore.
No,
So
definitely, and that's absolutely key. And like I said, that's something that I kind of work on with the, listening to audible kind of affirmations, meditation. Those things are really key and something that I need to make more time of, because I know they benefit. Tricia, we're coming up to time now. It's been absolutely
yeah,
incredible having you as a guest. Thank you
yeah,
so much for getting up so early to join us all the way from across the pond, as they say.
yes.
If people, I can put your details and everything in all of the in the comments and everything else as well. But if someone wanted to get hold of you, how would they be able to get hold of you? Do you have, obviously you're on your
website. Yeah, my website is www.myelbert, ELBERT.com, www.myelbert.com, and that's where I have everything. You can read my full story. You can get a hold of me for the anger shame checklist, which is another term for it, but in learning style checklist, it's free, but so.
Fantastic. I know that there's a lot of questions, and people had comments on this that we haven't been able to cover on this. I'm sure Tricia and myself at some point will work our way through these elements, through these questions. Sorry. So Tricia, I just want to say a massive thank you. We've had some incredible comments saying how much they've enjoyed this, and I've learned so much from yourself. I can't thank you enough for that. So Tricia, I will let you. It's 7 a.m. I think in where you are. So
yes, so I'm gonna go finish my coffee. And thank you for what you're doing. I appreciate so much people getting their story.
Bless you. Thank you so much, Tricia, and I will see you very soon. Yes. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
So guys, that was Tricia. As you can see, what an absolutely truly inspirational lady she is. I couldn't even cover half the stuff that we were going to kind of cover, but in the sense of the learnings and the teachings that she's mentioned as well has really helped her, and also helped so many other people as well. So please, if you haven't connected with her, then please do. Guys, that is another Neurodiversity Stories, and we'll be back as always next week for another show. Take care, guys, and thank you as always. And guys, if you would like to be on our Neurodiversity Stories, you'd like to share your stories, then please do get in touch, and I'll see you very soon. Take care, guys. Cheers. Bye-bye.